Namaste. Welcome to our September. See, I'm so spiritual minded, I had to look to see it was the month of September. Our September Satsang, which I've been looking forward to since the last one. And commercial time. Our latest endeavor is 2-volume set, Spirit and Life. It is a commentary on the Gospels, not one Gospel by one, but using what's called a harmony. Even very early on, by the 3rd century, Christians had made a continuous narrative of Jesus' life out of the 4 Gospels. And I used a very well-known harmony for that. And I will warn you, there's a great, for interpretation, there is a very large amount of analysis of Greek words. Because Greek is a very subtle language, not as much as Sanskrit, but still it has a lot of implications and actually different kind of applications. So Jesus, of course, was speaking in Aramaic, but the gospel writers, except for Matthew, wrote in Greek. Now, Matthew's gospel was in Hebrew, actually, not Aramaic, but Hebrew, and was translated into Greek by St. Luke, who was quite intelligent, therefore, and he had a great spiritual grasp. So we can safely interpret the Greek text from him. And I hope you'll find it useful. I liked writing it, but of course I like talking. So writing is just talking with a pen or a pencil. That was my secret. I always got A's in written things from grade school on, because I just realized when I was 6 or 7, I thought, well, writing is just talking with a pencil. So I would talk in my head, and it says transcribe it. I remember one of my English teachers used to say, what marvelous sentence structure. Well, a lot of it was that I read Victorian literature, and there I learned how to put sentences together. But also it was, I knew how to talk. So I copied it. There. A nice brag fest about clever me. Thank you very much for the questions. As usual, they show people are thinking about these matters, which is what's really important. A lot of people just don't think. And actually, I was planning to read you a list. There was a list about points for success, but I got busy on the other preparations and didn't. And I won't wait till next month. Anyway, it was a list, and the last 2 points were all about making yourself an individual, daring to be yourself and to not be somebody else and not be a standard item. And this is what the yogi has to be prepared for. How many yogis you're going to find? Oh, people say they're yogis. So, and if you're going to be a real yogi, you're going to follow yama, niyama, all these traditional things, and also have the wisdom to be studying the scriptures of Sanatana Dharma of India, and really know them. and apply them. Well, you're not going to be in step with hardly anybody you will know, which is why, as I've mentioned before, when I really got sort of centered in being a yogi, I realized I've got to get out of here. I was in this very placid, very nice Middle Western town with fine people, but not yogis. And I realized, I intuited Yogananda's statement, company is greater than willpower, and realized I've got to be with other yogis. And the last thing I want to do is turn into a standard item, which this society usually produces. So up I got and went off to the West Coast and had one of the greatest times of my life with yogis and also with people that weren't afraid to think about unusual things. It was quite good. All right, sorry. Da-da-da-da-da. Another way to talk about myself. All right. The very first question was by someone who began saying, I kindly ask you to not read my letter aloud. Okay, don't worry, it didn't have terrible things in it. It was just that it was very personal. So I will tell you this, that hopefully through the ether, some help is on the way. Bye. Does 3:33 a.m. hold any significance in meditation practice? Not that I know of. Now, 4 a.m. is considered the Brahmamuhurta. You could call it the time space of Brahman, God. And the yogis say that its value is that at that time, now you understand it would have to be real time, not just clock time, because see how here in America we change an hour every so often. That at that time, it's on the cusp. It's between night, between day, and everything is in a state of equilibrium and momentarily not stagnant, but in stasis. It's quietest. And it's a goodly period. I think it's about 45 minutes. So anyway, that is considered conducive for meditation. But the truth is, if you're a real yogi, you're observing what you should, and you know authentic yoga, Soham yoga, in my opinion, then you got nothing to worry about. You can meditate at any time. All right. Now, this is a very interesting question. How many stages are there in spiritual awakening? What are the soul steps to evolution or liberation? Very intelligent, very relevant question, and one which I can't answer because the answer is it's different for every other single person. I have observed yogis and their inner practices, their inner experiences. They've told me, I didn't clairvoyantly see them. And it interested me that there were certain experiences some yogis had right at the beginning and others did not, but they had them maybe after 2 or 3 years. And those people had experiences at their beginning that the first group of people did not have until after 2 or 3 years. So it's all so individual. This is why it's so important to see. You cannot be a member of a herd. It's nice to have satsang. It's good to have people of like-minded, but same-minded don't. And if they're the real type of the right person, then individuality is prized. I remember reading a Roman Catholic magazine which was talking about the problems of missionaries in India, who were there just to destroy the wisdom that the people had, that the Hindus by birth had. And it said the major problem was the intense individuality. And he even said, this was in a big Roman Catholic magazine, I mean, one of the major ones in America. He said, even in a crowd of thousands, if you look at them carefully, you're aware everyone is still completely an individual. Something the dictators hate. And these people were spiritual dictators. Everybody's got to follow a religion. Everybody's got to do what we think. So this is really the truth. Therefore, I used to love walking down the street in India, and I always would study the faces of the people I saw. First of all, because sometimes I saw some really special people. There were people I saw and I thought, I really wish I had their state of consciousness. I remember one time I was in Vrindavan, and here came an old little man who's kind of all bent over, dressed very traditionally, and had this white cloth cap that has flaps that go down. And I thought, now there is somebody. And it was just some weeks later, I was there again in Vrindavan with some friends of mine, and I took them to a very, very special temple, the Bihari temple. And we went at the very beginning, before the first darshan, and we were waiting there. You see, in the Bihari is a living image. Even to say living isn't enough. When you see Bihari, you see Krishna. And there's a long story about a certain incident that happened that they don't do like other temples where the morning time comes, they open the door and there it is. And for hours, you can come in and you see the image and you salute, you go. Instead, here, they rarely let the image be seen more than a couple of minutes at the most. So someone is there, they pull the curtain aside, sometime after a short time, after. Believe me, when you see the image, it is an incredible experience. So we went there for the very first darshan, and like everybody else, there's something that happens. When that door opens for the first time, something rolls out over the people, and people exclaim, I did. So anyhow, since of course we were obviously not Indian, and some of the priests watched and saw we meant it, and that we knew who we were looking at, and we worshiped who we were looking at. So they invited us to have lunch with Bihari. So we were there, just to the side, and they brought food. And that little man that I had seen came walking in and sat down. And he talked a little bit to my friends, who didn't know what he said because he spoke in Hindi, and I didn't know either. But he got across, I want you to say what I'm going to say. So he said the name of Rama. Ram, Ram. Okay, they said Ram, Ram. Ram, Ram, he said. So he did it a few times, and then he stood up to leave. And since priests sometimes are kind of interested in money and project that on others, and therefore a priest standing nearby said, well, do you want to ask him for some money? he was very displeased. He said, no, I got from them what I wanted. What's the most precious things in the world? The name of Rama, which has saved millions. Someone has written, Rama only saved about 8 or 9 people, but his name has saved millions through the century. So that was one of the wisest people I ever met, that wonderful, wonderful little man. All right. I have the option to retire at 56 years old. That is really great. If I use this opportunity to end work and move away from city life to a more peaceful and calm place conducive to the yogic path, will it be considered inaction? Exactly the opposite. You will become more active than you ever were. Remember, the Gita says the wise person knows and can see the action that is in inaction and the inaction that is in action. So, because your inner life will blossom and expand, then inwardly you are more active than you ever were before. And don't pay any attention to the, oh, you're running away. Of course you're running away. Are you fool? Are you crazy? If you were on a boat, you're in the harbor, you haven't set sail yet, and they say, oh, this thing's going to sink in 4 hours. You get off, don't you? Everybody thought it was cute when there was a Broadway show called Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. Well, as much as you can, get off. Therefore, this is proof that God is taking you seriously and is giving you the chance to really dig in and get somewhere. Of course, and I don't believe this about you necessarily, though I don't know you very well, though you've written to me before, God may be calling your bluff. Do you really want that? Really want that? I knew a wonderful man. I knew a lot of wonderful people in India, but his name was Narayan Das, and he was the manager of the huge Birla temple in Delhi, and of 2 or 3 ashrams, and a couple of even dharmashalas, places for pilgrims, and so on. Remarkable man, remarkable. Brilliant intellectually, brilliant even materially. And I had an opportunity to spend time with him. And he was truly wonderful and wise. So he told me that he got the feeling, I want to know God. Well, it would be great if everyone in the world could have that feeling. Because wanting something is also karmic. It isn't just the body that acts, the mind acts. So if you really want something a lot, you usually end up getting it. Therefore, it's been said, be careful what you want, you may get it. So anyway, he thought, I must know God, I must know God, I must know God. And it was sort of in his mind. And Anandamayi had been in Delhi and she was leaving, and he went to the train station. One of our favorite activities was meeting Ma at the train and seeing Ma off at the train. And so he was there in the train station, and when Ma came in, he called out, Ma! Yes, she stopped. What? I want to know God. I want to see God. So Ma smiled and she put her head to one side and said, do you really want to know and see God? He said, I knew if I said yes, she would tell me to take sannyas. So I said, no, Ma, I don't want to see God. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. I recently saw a YouTube channel that the Cathars have. I found the information very interesting. Can you comment on this group? I don't believe any genuine Cathars would ever have a YouTube channel. The Cathars, the real Cathars. See, people take like there are all kinds of little idiot groups going around saying, we're Rosicrucians. They're not at all. So any fool could say I'm a Christian or I'm a Hindu, and they're not. And of course, obviously, anyone can say I'm a Cathar. Cathars believe that salvation is attained. I'm talking about the real Cathars. Only by a process which you have to do yourself called the Endura. And you know what that is? You starve yourself to death voluntarily. You don't eat, you don't drink, and you die. And when you drop the body that way, you, in their view, have attained perfection and have salvation. I've got an idea of dollars to donuts. That YouTube group doesn't believe that at all. So my comment is, I doubt. I doubt if, and then you can put anything you want after that. All right. Here's a person who observes disciplines, but finds that often in dreams there are experiences of intense negativity. And who naturally asks, well, since I'm not like this outside the dreams, and I don't do these kind of things outside the dream, and I don't have these attitudes outside the dream, where does this negativity come from, or why? Why is it this? It is because you have a long, long history. You have been born over and over and over again in this world, as well as other worlds. And to come to the point where here we are sitting and talking about these things, you have lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of spiritual reaching out and spiritual inquiry and spiritual, hopefully, finding. But at the same time, you have far more lifetimes of just grubbing in the mud, wallowing, being in the hog wallow, like all kinds of deluded, ignorant people. And that's it. Like you and I, we used to be wild animals. We were in every insect form there was, and we were in every animal form there was. So we got all this in our minds. I've heard of people that have had dreams of being an animal, and it was so vivid when they woke up, they thought, well, it has to be a real dream, a real memory, but that's impossible. But it wasn't, because they had been in animal form in previous life. Therefore, all of these things are there. And the truth is, when it starts floating up or billowing up, it's a good sign. It means you're opening the depths of your awareness and you're bringing onto the conscious level what has been unconscious before. So it's just fine. Just say, well, what do you know? Keep up your sadhana, and everything will be just fine. But I understand. I had a dream one time. It was when I was beginning a yogi. And I had a dream. It was so vivid that somebody did something I didn't like. I mean, no, that one didn't make it vivid. Anyway, in the vivid dream, someone did something I didn't like. I was angry, and I screamed some kind of magical incantation at them, and they dropped dead. I mean, it was very vivid. And I woke up, And I felt it. It was awful. But I thought, yep, there is rebirth, and I must have known how to like yell out death curses at people at one time. See? All nice people have got a naughty background, but all naughty people have a nice future. So enjoy. You've arrived here. Yeah, this is interesting. Is it mandatory for a person who is single to have a romantic sexual relationship in order to shed light and work on certain samskaras? Boy, do I know thousands of people who would say, yes, yes, that's it. You better do it. And you need to test yourself out. How do you know you're such a yogi? How do you know that you're above it all? Are you really above it all? Why don't you do it some and find out? Well, if you do it, then you're not above it all. Let's face realities. Like, I hope I could, if I met any one of you, that I couldn't shoot you, even if somebody gave me a gun. It ought to be as impossible as for me to cut off my own head. But right conduct isn't always that entrenched in us. So there are the people who say, well, how do you know it if you don't do it? Oh, yeah, well, I've never drunk carbolic acid, and I don't think I have to either, because people with a mind told me it would kill me, so I accepted. So the idea you need to get out and have experience, I was told this in India. No kidding. Somebody was supposed to be very, very religious. You should do everything at least once. Oh, you can. See, where my mistake was, which I would do now, I'm telling you the truth. I should have said, great, I've never slapped you before. Are you ready? So, baloney. Yes. Oh, and I've heard of people, well, I was practicing brahmacharya and yoga, so I went to a house of prostitution and watched people having sex to see if it would bring my mind down. Your mind isn't up very high if you'd even do such an idiotic and evil thing, which shows you got a dirty mind and you wanted to take a look. See, if you're not a yogi and you're not a dharmi, follow not a dharma, you're an idiot fool. And that's the end of it. And it doesn't matter what you do or don't do. You are destroying yourself. And, maybe there's not much there to destroy. How can I say it? Yes, you'd be able to work on it. Yes, I go to the porno theater to see if my mind has become sex-proof, to see if it doesn't arouse me anymore. Oh, just go ahead and do it. You're dirty anyway. You're a dirty pig anyhow. So go roll in the mud. That's what you tell the people who tell you this. I'm not saying that you're that AR, but the people who tell you that sure are. So many of it, truth is in speech and truth is in action. And there are some people that said, I couldn't care less whether God exists or not, and they should quit the pretense of spirituality and just go live like there isn't anything to it. Won't hurt them, won't hurt them. There was a woman, Yogananda stories are always good because he's so easy to love. This was told by one of his very close disciples to me. There was a woman who was known actually for her dancing. Apparently she was quite gifted, named Ruth St. Dennis, who lived there in Los Angeles. And but she also considered herself a spiritual light. And she had a little coterie, a little group of admirers. And Yogananda on Sundays, can you imagine what a wonderful thing? And Sundays in the afternoon, he would just be there. You see, the headquarters had been a hotel. So when you came in, you were in, well, the lobby of a hotel. So it was pretty large. A lot of people could get in there. And he would be there on Sundays. And people would come in and just talk with him. Think it was such a marvelous thing. So anyway, she used to come and bring her little gang. But of course, her idea was to shine. It says in the Bible, you shine as lights in the world. Well, she wanted to prove the Bible is to be true. So she would come there and she'd always start in on vegetarianism. And when Yogananda had great wisdom to give out, everybody had to hear Ruth St. Denis talk about meat eating, the evils of meat eating, and she would say, I have never eaten meat once in my entire life. Then it get better. I not only have no meat in my body, my physical body, I never ate meat in my previous life, so I don't even have any meat in my astral and causal bodies. I don't know, they usually would end with this. What a great, well, not what a good girl am I, what a great girl am I. And I'm so pure. And then she would leave with her little gaggle of geese. And one time it happened, and Yogananda, he always would walk her to the door, and he was very polite. He was a merciful person. And so then closed the door, walked back and said, I really wish that somebody would slip that woman a ham sandwich. She'd never know the difference, and it wouldn't hurt her a bit. Ah, yes, yes, so it is. But I heard about a man in India, supposedly a sadhu, that dreamed he ate meat and considered committing suicide. Now, how's that for? There is such a thing as being not wise. Okay, sorry. Have to do this. Oh, by the way, sorry, there was another question with the thing about the romantic. I really wouldn't know, thank God, being a monk, but I wouldn't consider it a valid practice. All right. Someone expresses appreciation for the 2 books I've just done a commercial on. And thank you. And ask if I've ever been to Babaji's cave. No, I never have, to tell you the truth. I knew a person who, I've seen photographs of people in this cave. But it is said that Babaji has several caves. And I did know someone who went and did, but it was in the depths of a jungle where literally tigers were roaring. And she risked her life and went there, and guess what? She didn't see Babaji. But there apparently are 3 or 4 caves where it's said. But I haven't done it. And thank you for your kind appreciation. I do also, he says, I always enjoy the Satsang. I do too. All right. Here's a person asking about universal spiritual core values. I would say yama and niyama are those. And I've written about them, and I don't know if you'd really want me to. Excuse me, I'm looking at my time. Uh, but I would say this. Yama and niyama are the absolute necessities. If you don't have them, you can't get anywhere. And the thing is, meditation, meditation, meditation. Not just meditation, but japa. In other words, all day long, you've got your mind there. And I truly do recommend, sorry, I was going to see if I had a copy, of my book, Soham Yoga. Will God mitigate karma? Sometimes. You see, I remember hearing a Christian bishop say one time, that the problem with a lot of people is that they want to tell God what he can and cannot do. So I don't want to be one of them. So anything is possible. Because you see, you understand, everything is under the control of our mind and our consciousness. Is it possible to wipe out karmas in a moment by thought, by aspiration, by effort? I fail to see why not. Because they're just whirls of energy. Karma is not some great law. Dear God help us too. Then you have the theosophists who talk about the lords of karma. Ooh, they're up there. See, and they brag they're not Christians, and they don't have the negativity of Christians, but they got all the same coercive fear tactics of Christians because their minds aren't changed. You can change your lip service to a philosophy, but has your mind changed? And it doesn't. So the truth is, we used to sing in our fundamentalist Protestant church, God can do anything but fail. However, God is real good at making you think he's failed. So don't get fooled sometimes. So I believe, and it's only a personal belief, I have no backing for it at all, that it's possible for karma to be wiped out totally in a single moment. And I also believe that for some people, it's not possible to have an iota of karma change. You understand? Because it is, I knew the man, he had his first love. Actually, it was rather late. It was when he was in high school. I wanted to get engaged to Kitty Lundy when I was 7, but maybe I was precocious. But anyhow, he had his first love, and he had his own car. So he would drive around and around the block, especially at night when the lights were on, to see if he could see his inamorata, that means beloved, through the window. And he was ridiculous about it. And so one of my friends who knew him, didn't like him very much, but found him so interesting in his obsessions that he just sometimes came to take a look at him. And so anyway, the poor boy was bemoaning his frustrations. And so his aunt said, "Look, Jack, it's just all in your head." Now, my friend was an absolute incorrigible Gemini. And Geminis have a thing about rational and irrational and foolish and wise. And they dislike absurdities unless it's intentional for comedy. And so even when he told me about it, he said, "Well, where else did she think it was? In his foot?" So the thing is, uh, it's all open season. No two lives are alike. No two set of rules for individuals are alike. So, yes, kabang. But remember, Tatvamasi, thou art that. You're God. So I don't think God says, oh, well, I think they should have lesser karma. But I think you can do things that, as I say, can wipe it out just like that. You can counteract karma. Those who in previous lives, so they don't know it, were selfish and dishonest and so on. In this life, if they are kind, compassionate, genuinely, and they do a lot of charity and they help a lot of people, that counteracts the karma. Doesn't mean they buy God off. It just means that, if there's something that can bend and it's got a bend in it, well, you can just unbend it, and there you are. Remember, it's a dream. Krishna says, you dream, you act, and you dream, you reap the results of your action. So what's the answer? Wake up. Yeah. What sort of help does God provide? Whatever is needed at the moment. Really. And it can be amazing things. There are some people, they break their leg, and while they're immobile, they get interested in spiritual things, and so then they go on from there. Some people see other people die, and it wakes them up. But God helps those that help themselves. I would certainly say that. Or what sort of help won't he provide? Well, I think if somebody's really bothering you, chances are he won't strike them dead. And chances are he won't even do anything to remove it from your life. You have to tell them, get out of here. Stop bothering me. There's a really interesting story about insecure people have got to preach about things, you see. And so there are insecure religious people who go out into a park and get up on a little box and harangue about religion. And there are atheists that are insecure, and they go and harangue about atheism. And it is said that it was in England, in a park, and a man was saying some stuff, and people were disagreeing. He said, well, if there's a God, may he just strike me down now. And one of the people there said, why would I ask God to do what I can do? And walked up and went bam and knocked him out. So there we are. Sorry. Do you believe that all religions lead to the same goal? No. No religion leads to the goal. Change of consciousness, which implies change of life, leads you to the goal. The best thing is yoga. Japa, meditation. I recommend Soham Japa meditation, but it's not the only way. And that's it. But religion doesn't take you anywhere. Now, do I believe all religions have equal value? Heavens, no. Most religions are both half-witted and negative. And that's the real truth. And there are people that think they're Hindus and they're just idiots in what they believe and even claim as Hinduism. They're totally wrong about. I don't know what happened to them that they never learned. And they're very obnoxious people to consider themselves Hindus, especially the type are called Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Yeah. One of these characters wrote me just this week, pages of quotes from Krishna Chaitanya and so on, and all this crap. And I just wrote back and said, Krishna said be a yogi. He didn't say be a devotee, be a bhakta. That was not well received, but happened to be the truth. So, no. In fact, religion can't take you anywhere. Sadhana only takes you somewhere. And to understand sadhana and to do it in the right perspective, then Sanatana Dharma is the only worthwhile framework. There you are. I thought the whole idea was to merge with God. Well, the whole idea of going to school is to get out of school. But to say, oh, all I need to do is graduate. So you could have, say, a multi-million dollar millionaire, and their kid goes to kindergarten, and so they give a big bribe to the head of a school, and they come in and give Junior a diploma and give him a university degree, give him a PhD, then Junior can go home. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way at all. As the Bible says, faith without works is dead. Because if you're in a building and somebody screams fire, if you believe it, you get out. If you don't get out, you don't believe it. Oh no, it can't be all by deeds. By their deeds you will know them. That's the Bible verse. Why is yoga considered a science rather than a religion? Because genuine yoga is a practice. However, the practice has to be in a framework that gives you an understanding, so you understand why, you see, why you should be a yogi, and that the practice is in keeping with that. So to tell you the truth, they say yoga is not a religion. Well, neither is breathing, so it's a stupid analogy. Yoga is not a religion, but if you don't have the right mentality and the right motivations, you won't manage. You won't take it to the end. You'll get bored after a while and stop, or you'll get distracted and stop. Therefore, the first thing is Bhagavad Gita. You read it, you read it, you read it, you read it. The Upanishads, you read them, you read them, you read them. There's just a dozen or so major Upanishads. There are a lot of little things called Upanishads that are utterly negligible. But those things, you have to have it in your mind. Yes, that was the thing. When the lightning strike came, and I knew in a moment there was karma, reincarnation, evolution of consciousness, and a series of worlds that we go to according to our levels of consciousness, then I thought, well, I can't be a Christian. I thought, what's my religion? I'm glad to say I had a deep-seated idea I needed one. And fortunately, because I've been drawn to it for quite a while, seeing it for sale, I went, bought myself a copy of the Gita, read it, and knew I'm a Hindu, and that's the end. So that's what I found is best. And I don't believe there's yoga and Hinduism are absolutely interwoven. The motivations for yoga, the ideas of the very nature of things and of you as an individual, only Hinduism knows. Therefore, that's how it is. And I've never taken anyone seriously who said, well, I know I don't have to be a Hindu. Yeah, I waited either in 3 months or 3 weeks, 3 months or 3 years. They were over the hill. How long must I meditate to see God by my outer or inner eye? Now, what kind of fool would I be to give you a time? You'll never do it until you have elevated, you have purified, corrected, and elevated your mind and opened up these inner spiritual faculties. I'm not talking about becoming psychic so you can read auras, nothing wrong with that. But that until you change profoundly, you're not going to see anything. And since anyway, you're after self-realization, well, remember an autobiography of a yogi? Yogananda went to his guru and said, when do I see God? When do I know God? Because he didn't realize what he was experiencing is the reality of God. So sometimes that happens. So if you want, but what good will it do to see God? You can see the greatest pianist in the world. You won't be able to play a simple melody. If you saw Einstein, would you be any smarter? And God, the great stigmatist, Theresa Neumann, was visited by one of Yogananda's disciples. Yogananda had met Theresa Neumann, wrote about her in his autobiography. And so this disciple was in Germany, he could speak German, teaching classes actually in yoga, meditation. And so I thought, well, I should go to Cathars. I should see Theresa Neumann. It made sense. So he went. He went in the middle of the day. They said, she's working in the field. He thought, this stigmatist, renowned throughout the world. She's out working in the field, okay. But her brothers were there, and they said, you come back in the evening. So he went back that evening. And they showed him in the living room, and they sat him down. And in Autobiography of a Yogi, at that time, the photographs of Theresa Neumann were taken when she was very young, and she didn't look cadaverous, but she was very thin. And of course, we have the American prejudice against fat people. Well, anyway, in came this really fat woman, sat down and said, what do you want? No preamble. What do you want? He said, I don't want anything. Of course you want something from me. Everybody who comes here wants something. Now look, I am over 60 years old. Don't you think I need a little bit of quiet and peace and be left alone in my life? So people write to me, people come to see me, they want something from God. I'll pray, they'll get it. So tell me what you want, I'll pray you can have it, and then you can go. Well, he was just shocked. He thought, this is not the image of the saint. So he just sat there. I mean, he didn't know what to say. So she got up and she went over, he said, and she went right up, I almost touched his nose and looked right in his eyes. And he said, suddenly she changed. And she stood back and said, you have God in your heart. And she went back and sat down, and he said, my own mother never showed me such love. He said it just streamed out of her. And they talked. And at one point she said, and I'm so glad to know you're a Catholic. He said, no, I'm not a Catholic. He wasn't. He was a Protestant. He was born a Protestant. She said, yes, you're a Catholic. No, he said, I'm not a Catholic. She said, you don't know what I'm talking about. There are Catholics that go to Mass every single day, follow all the rules, but their hearts are closed to God. They aren't Catholics. And there are people that haven't even heard the name of Jesus, but their hearts are open to God. They're Catholics. and you're a Catholic. Interesting, isn't it, you see? So, this is the thing. The open heart. We used to sing as Protestants, into my heart, Lord Jesus. Come in today, come in to stay, come into my heart, Lord Jesus. Not likely. Or as the British would say, not bloody likely. So, there it goes. So how long to meditate before you can see God? You don't have a meter in your head. Like there were people around Anandamayi. They thought they had a mother meter in their head. And the longer they were there in her presence, the more the meter went up and the more likely they were to get somewhere. I have seen people like this, just frantic, like, oh. But there you are. It doesn't work. You can't do it by clock time. Have you seen God? You know I'm going to pull one on you, don't you? He who knows, this is from the Upanishads, okay? He who knows tells it not. He who tells knows it not. There are many more people on earth now than there were when Hinduism began. You know when it began? I don't. And when Jesus lived and so forth, where do these new souls come from? Well, how do you know they're new? How do you know? I mean, come on. How do you know? No, there's just not, say, a few trillion or a few quadrillion souls, and they just keep cycling in and out and in and out and in and out. And after all, how do you meet someone? How do you know how many times they've been on the earth? How do you know it's not their first time? You see? So the population of the world goes up and goes down, and there are plagues. A lot of people die. And then, of course, there's overpopulation, which is absurd. So there are no new souls. Every self, every Atma has existed from eternity and was always here. Now, they weren't all being recycled constantly. And remember, first you start out as an atom of hydrogen. Literally, you become more and more complex gases, then you graduate to be a mineral. And then you're embodied in the minerals. I don't know how it works, but anyway, it works. And then you go into you're a single-celled animal. You're an amoeba swimming around and so on. And it takes creation cycles to get up to humanity. It is an incredible thing. So everybody's been there, or everybody's always been there. So people come in and they go out, and then some people go up and up and up, and they are free, and they say, I think I'll do that again. Go down and do it again. So there are no new souls. Some people may be new to the earth plane, but I met a man who was classified as dangerous by UCLA authorities. And he was considered mentally ill, etc. Like I said, dangerous. And a friend of mine was teaching him because he was not teachable in the ordinary way. He was, at the time I met him, I'd say 15 or 16. And there were things he couldn't get straight. Even family relationships, he couldn't get straight. I don't mean he just acted inappropriately, he just couldn't comprehend. He could not comprehend parent-child. So I thought, well, let's see what's going on. Right? So then I said, look, I said to my friend who was being paid a lot of money to every single day sort of be his keeper and try to, in a sense, train him. I said, look, this is ridiculous. And then I told him how he was new here from a planet where the life had all died out, been blown up or something happened. And I told him somewhat like the whole way their evolutionary evolution went. And it didn't grow up like ours at all. It didn't end in with a society like ours. And I said, therefore, the poor boy is confused. And instead of being supposedly firm with him, just try to be understanding and wait and see, because his inner mind, which is the mind of the self, will be able to figure out everything ultimately and do it. But you just radiate what you as a yogi know and try to help as much as you can. But understand, he's not a learning problem and he's not a social problem. The poor boy is in a place where he never was before. He wasn't a boy then. So it is. If we plan everything before we're born, is that where we have free will, or does this continue here? We always have free will. But we enslave ourselves by our free will. You see, we have the free will to make ourselves slaves. After all, an addict is a slave. They had free will. They could say, smoke that cigarette and be sophisticated and say to people like my church I grew up with, oh, you fanatics, there's nothing wrong with that, with cigarettes and so on. And then they couldn't quit. They were slaves. Anything that enslaves you is wrong. There are people who say, oh, I didn't meditate this morning and I just feel awful. Whenever I skip my meditation, the whole day goes wrong. That's the words of an addict and also a delusional. Believe me, you can meditate for 5,000 years, and the day you want to stop, bam, you can stop just like that. Because freedom is freedom. If you don't have the freedom to mess yourselves up, you don't have the freedom to straighten yourself up. That is the real truth. Very, very, very definitely. So then, O Arjuna, be a yogi, be a yogi, be a yogi. If you're not a yogi, then go watch reruns of Captain Kangaroo. But why come to this satsang? Oh, negative. You bet. Oh no. Can a Swami be released from his vows? Well, we don't make vows. That's what the West does. And anyone in India who says that a sadhu makes vows is a liar. Or else they don't have any experience of legitimate sadhus and legitimate sannyasis. Real sannyas, I said that word real, is an acknowledgement, I'm serious now, an acknowledgement that the person is a sannyasi. Ma used to talk about antar sannyasi, inner sannyas. Oh, and she wasn't saying that, you can run the Campbell soup factory and be an inner sannyasi either. She wasn't saying that. But she meant it has to be, see, it comes from antakarana, the inner mechanism, the inner being. So, you are born a sannyasi or you're not a sannyasi. And a responsible member of the order of Shankara, and I don't say everyone is, looks at you and knows he, she is a sannyasi already. I wrote a brief note to Ma before I ever met her. A very good friend of mine who was going to meet Ma for the first time took the note, and during her interview, an interview she had with Ma, it was read to Ma. And Ma told the translator, write down an answer. And Ma began saying, write to my friend. So the translator, Brahmacharini Atmananda, some of you may know her name, said Ma considers him a sannyasi because she never calls anybody her friend but sadhus. You can think about that one for a while. You see? So Ma considered me a sannyasi. My sannyasa guru said the same thing to me. I see you're a sannyasi. So you should manifest what you are inwardly, unless it's very bad. So I was inside a sannyasi. I mean, God showed me this when I was 4 years old, literally. And anyway, so it was an acknowledgement. In other words, you should be what you are. You should act according to your true inner disposition, your karmas, your samskaras, your mentality. So I was not made a sannyasi, really. Of course, naturally, we have to use these terms. They say not that you were made as one, but that sannyas was bestowed on you. In other words, that acknowledgement was there. You are that. And that's the way it works. So there are no vows at all. So there's no release. Roman Catholics do it and others do. Buddhists do it. They have all kinds of easy ways to get out of it. And there are all kinds of groups that are not Shankara people in India. I don't know what they do. But this is the truth. So there's no vows and there's no release. You can betray. Theresa Neumann. There was a priest who had quit being a priest. He got married. So he came in one time, there was a group of people. Of course, she'd never met him. And he had never gone to Conroy before. He went in. There was a group of people. And at one point she looked at him and said, and she almost cried, and she said, "Oh, Father, what have you done?" You see? He was a priest. Oh, they have orders that say you can be released from your vows, but those are just organizations. They can't talk for God. So there is no such thing as a release. And that's why I met a very devout woman one time. She had problems in her life that kind of came to her. And she said to me, "Look, I and my brothers and sisters were all under a curse." I thought, "Really?" She said, "My father was a priest, but he fell and he got married." And she said, "It has come out in the lives of every one of us." Now, of course, you understand. You're only born to people that you have virtually identical karmas with. So people like to say, "I'm not like my father and mother." On the subconscious mind level, there is an affinity, a deep affinity. you see. And so it is. I have seen fallen monks and fallen nuns. Some of them trying to brazen it out like, oh, I'm free after all this time. But no. It's a tragedy to see. I really mean that. It's a tragedy. I didn't feel like, oh, you bad people. I thought, oh, again, like Theresa Neumann, what have you done? This is sad, and this carries over into future lives. When we slam a door in a future life, we may want to get through the door, but it'll be closed. Not forever, but so. I have read that Lahiri Mahasaya said no one should become a sannyasi. Nonsense. Then how do you read in Yogananda's life about Swami Brahmamuhurta the same with two bodies? Wasn't he his disciple? You read an autobiography about Swami Keshavananda, or Keshavananda, he says it Bengali way. He was a disciple of Lahiri Mahasaya. Rangapal Mazumdar. He wasn't married. He wasn't a householder yogi and so on. So this is ridiculous. However, he did say very few people should do that. Oh, yes. And he was very strict and said, because he knew it can ruin you if you try to, you see, Krishna says, better is your own dharma than the dharma of another. Krishna said, better is your own dharma done imperfectly than the dharma of another done to perfection. So Lahiri Mahasaya knew their dharma is monastic life, and their dharma is not. But people, for various reasons, sometimes they want to appear like better than they are. Sometimes it's a very romantic idea, like, oh, I'll go to the Himalayas. They'll never hear from me again, and so on. And this is silly, and it's self-theater. So Lahiri Mahasaya was very strict about this. But it's nonsense to say he said no one should be a sannyasi. No one should be a sannyasi who shouldn't be. And you know something? They're not common. They're not ordinary. You don't go downtown and find, oh, there's about 10 people here that could be sannyasis. Is that true? So why did he say it? Well, it isn't true. So he didn't say it. Of course, how could I prove it? Is yoga also helpful for mentally ill people, people living with paranoid, schizophrenia, etc.? Absolutely not. I think I mentioned before, but see over time. Oh, I've gone a little beyond our time. I knew a very adept yogi, very miraculous yogi. Boy, I've seen him in Samadhi. It was quite a sight. And he just said, well, you have to have yoga, you have to have meditation. But people said, would it help mentally ill people? He said, no. Because a crazy person, if you teach them meditation, will do it in a crazy manner. They will meditate crazily and make themselves worse and even more delusional, and then everybody around will say, look, do you see what that yoga stuff did to them? Or say to you, if you're the one who taught them, hey, look how you messed them up. So absolutely not. Not. A person who is absolutely deaf and blind and can't speak, you can't teach them yoga. But they're going to reincarnate, and then you can teach them yoga. So these people that are mentally ill, it won't do it. However, you can love them and you can bless them, especially from a distance, and they can be helped. This is true also. I have seen really crazy people become very sane people, and very sane people become very crazy people. So there you are. So I've gone 15 minutes beyond our time. So, and I won't promise not to do it again. So there I put away the questions. And I thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your patience. I realize if you know astrology, I've got Gemini rising. I remember one time at there was a place in Los Angeles. It was actually an old renovated church called the First Temple and College of Astrology. I don't know if it's still there or not. It was downtown in a residential area. And actually, you just went down a street, and then there were a bunch of about 15 feet high bushes and a little gap. And you went through the gap, and behold, there was, I don't know who would have put it there. There was this big old wooden, small town type Protestant church. And you went in and they taught excellent astrology. I mean, they did research on astrology. They're remarkable. And this very, very gifted woman in astrology, once a week at noontime, had a class on so-called mundane astrology, which means astrology about the way the munda, the way the world works. And it was phenomenal because, I mean, I did it. I would go there and see the next week's news because she would have the previous chart from the week before and then that chart of the day. And she'd say this and this and this and this will happen and this kind of event, and it would. Very, very much. She could definitely tell it. It was amazing to think. And people say, oh, but what about free will? We are free. Do we think we're free? If you don't eat, you'll die. If you don't breathe, you'll die. You don't pay your bills, or you don't keep the laws. Well, so, you know, the freedom is not overrated. It's also felt it exists where it doesn't exist. But anyway, so it is with astrology, it's really true. It is a science. But most people don't know it. But if you can find, I can't guarantee it'll be unchanged, but there is a group, not large, unfortunately, I wish there were a lot more, called the Church of Light. Not the Superette Church of something light, which is in California. The Church of Light. And they were started by a remarkable man named Albert Benjamin, but he wrote under the title C.C. Zane. And their astrology is excellent. I mean, excellent. You can trust them very well. And actually, recently we had some things come up that it seemed that astrological, at least diagnosis of a situation would be good. And we called the nearest Church of Light and said, can you recommend an astrologer? And they did. And so we asked the astrologer to cast the horoscope and see. And his advice was absolutely very, very good because we followed it and everything was the way it was. I've myself known tremendously good astrologers. And astrology is a marvelous tool, but you never get superstitious about it. And you never think it's infallible, and you never think an astrologer is infallible. So always you should use your own wisdom. And if they tell you to do something or not do, but you feel differently and it's really deep, go ahead. Make a mistake. You're not going to die. God won't strike you with lightning. People are very too much interested in, am I doing the right thing in the wrong situations? Then they won't be that scrupulous about anything else. When they really want to do something or go somewhere, have relationships with people, then they don't say, oh, I want to do the right thing. So it's not always a healthy side. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate it greatly. And hopefully, I will see you next month.